Well, another day, another insane possible decision from the movie industry and the entertainment industry. I do not know how they managed to top themselves in terms of comments. But to be fair, I suppose when you are constantly talking to news outlets and stuff like that, you're going to say some dumb stuff. I'm here today with Alex from Podcast Now, who's a good friend of mine. Alex, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay.
Yeah, and today, Alex, I'm going to do my best to not trigger you, so I'm going to make sure not to say the said word that we're talking about, but they're going to, supposedly, the whole thing that we're talking about is the possibility of removing the title Men from X-Men, now that Disney has it, which I find very hilarious, and I think a lot of people will say, well, that's insane. This is, what is it that people like to call this thing? Oh yeah, like a grifting video or reactionary, but it's actually really based in like a truth, which is that the current Marvel president now, Marvel president Victoria Alonso, she's not the president of the entire company, but she is the president of physical, post-production, VFX, and animation. She now got promoted. Originally, a while back, was actually talking about X-Men, and she had said on Mail Online, I don't know where the future is going. It's funny that people call it the X-Men. There's a lot of female superheroes in that X-Men group, so I think it's outdated. Which I find interesting to be coming from someone who is now high up in Marvel. Now, to be fair, she said this a while ago, and I've said my own share of cringy things years ago that I wish I could take back, but I do find it interesting that that basically we're at the point where the title of X-Men is offensive, even though the entire point of X-Men was to be a comic about and relating to people who didn't fit in for different reasons. It's actually probably Marvel's most politically based comic that they ever started. I mean, it was based on politics in the sense of racism. Like, the idea was supposed to be, hey, you know how the mutants are still human, but they're different? Well, so are people like, they would say like, so are people like that kid that people call a racial slur, or so is the kid that no one will hang out with, all this stuff. They wanted to use it as the other, the outsider, who should be part of the group. They've tied in racism to it. They've tied in, political stuff all throughout the history of X-Men, right? It's been like a very, very divisive book off and on since its creation. Because of that, but those things were always handled with a lot of integrity, respect, and care for the most part. So I find it really sad that we're hitting this point, and I kind of wanted to hear some of your thoughts on it, Alex.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's a case that nothing's safe, and I guess to start it out, right? You and we I think are generally good people. We never even come at this stuff from like, we're anti-women or anti, different genders or races or whatever. It's literally not about that. What I always tell people, right, is that these are the people that are the R words, right? That these are literally the people that they push so far. Or I guess in this case, it's not necessarily pushing so far as just being like insane, just being like you're making something out of something that nobody actually, gets mad at. But when you do things like, when you're Jordan Peele and you say, in my movies, I only cast black people. Like, that's all, when you say that and you think about it for more than a second, you really have to think probably 2 seconds, and you say, you know what, that kind of sounds like a certain R word that other people would be called if the races were reversed. If you say, I'm only going to cast white people in my movie, I think you'd be called something. And so, but it's okay because it's the other race. And that's one level of crazy. This is honestly a different level. It's relatively close, but it's another level of crazy because it's just something that's not upsetting. It's actually funny that this actually made it as far as it did. Dark Phoenix made it out, and I didn't really see any. But Dark Phoenix had the stupid Jennifer Lawrence line, right, about, you should change the name. Actually, that's where it started, right? You should change the name. Women are always the ones saving you. It's like a professional writer, sat down and thought that was a good line to put in their film, and that just shows you something. So I'm surprised that movie made it out with just that line in it, and nothing else happening, because it does have men in the title. It's a joke. It really is. And I get it. Like you said, like, it's something, she didn't say. She could have said a while ago. And it's like everybody says stuff, but it's like she's in a position of power. She's in a very high position of power. She's influential, and it does sound like you said in the beginning, right? It sounds crazy. It sounds like, something that people could tell us, like you're making something out of nothing. It's never going to happen. I wouldn't be so certain about that. You know what I mean? I really think things with this stuff, things are going to get worse before they get better. Like we're in for another 3 to 5 years of garbage before things turn around.
Yeah, I guess what worries me with it is that I don't know where this ends. So let's say that they do this. Now, I still think it's far-fetched that they would. And I'm just being honest, just because this is not because they're afraid to get rid of men, right? The name, but because it's the actual title that people recognize. I think that Disney, they are huge into brand recognition. They are huge into money. And I think it would kind of be almost a box office suicide to purposely change that. However, I will say that recent years maybe have set a precedent the other way around. We have seen movies related to superheroes that don't necessarily have the superhero's name in the title that still do well. We've seen Man of Steel. We've seen The Dark Knight. That actually, despite what people think, does not have the word Batman in it. And that was years ago. We have seen movies like Logan and The New Mutants. So I do think audiences are intelligent enough to see the movie without the brand recognition name necessarily in it, as long as they know it's tied to it, which could be a bad sign with this, because it would, give them precedent to change it. But I guess my question is, where does it end? So say they change it to The Mutants or something like that. Well, you already have The New Mutants, so now it sounds like your movie comes before that. So I don't really think you can do that.
It's got to be X people.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. X people sound stupid. You do have that. You also have the fact that if you just name it something like X, it doesn't come off like a superhero project at all. I don't know what you do. And the other thing is, I guess to kind of get to the meat of this comes back to the everything is offensive mentality, or everything is outdated. And I don't even mean nothing is sacred, because at the end of the day, nothing is. This is all fictional stuff that's made for fun and money. But, say you remove men. Now you're at people. Well, is that not inclusive? What about somebody who identifies as an otherkin? Or, you know what I mean? Or what about if we say X individuals? Are we now getting into the place where people who have dissociative identity disorder are not represented because they have multiple personalities inside of their body? Are they not being represented by this term? What if we do a gendered term just in general? Is that bad? Because what about non-binary people? What if we do a non-binary term? What about people who are women who are very proud of being feminist and feminine? You hit the point with this where you can't please everybody. And I've said it before, this is very, very based in postmodernist thought. You read some of the writings of T.S. Eliot with things like The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock and The Wasteland, and there was this entire movement of literature and mentality after sort of the death of God, which was essentially like when the evolutionary theory started being very prominent and a lot less people were religious. What ended up happening was there were less things considered to be absolute truths. And so what ended up happening, I guess, in societies, especially England, and it spread to America too, and the rest of the West, was this idea of trying not to offend anybody. You don't want to assume what other people are saying or what they believe, because words can never fully mean what we think in our head. So you're always kind of walking around on eggshells, and you're always kind of trying not to piss anybody off and not to make a fool of yourself, because you want to be the most intellectual person and you want to be able to convey your truth as best as you can. And the point that I'm getting to with all of that is you hit a point where there are no truths and there is no ability to actually convey what you mean. No matter what title you pick with this, if you're saying men is outdated and X-Men, we need something more inclusive, I could always slide that goalpost further and further and further and further to the point where it's non-inclusive. I mean, animal rights people, what if we have a dog in the X-Men? Are we now oppressing the dog that we didn't name it like the X-Creatures because there's a dog in the X-Men? It's just very silly to me, and it really is based in that old way of thought that has really continued throughout the 21st century. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of this, because it's just so absurd to even have to be talking about Alex. Like, I don't,
You're
what
right.
are they doing?
Yeah. No, it is what you said. It's this culture, and I don't know. It's tough because I don't like to offend people. At the end of the day, I think, and maybe it's more like a spiritual thing, right? Like we say what we say, and we don't mean harm. We don't hate people. We don't we don't say things in an attacking point of view. If you take it that way, that's you're taking it. But I think generally we try to get our points across, as well as we can. But also we, like you said, like we have to have that thing inside us where it's like, well, this is just what we believe or what we think, or it's what we're saying at that moment. And you don't have to agree with it. We're not out to hurt anybody. If you take, if it harms you, maybe it's some self-reflecting or something. Maybe not necessarily has something to do with you, but it definitely, could. And that really, that's a very, self kind of thing that everybody deals with. And this is that, kind of that level a lot bigger where who's really, again, not to say like, these people don't have rights or these people don't have the right for an opinion, right? But who's actually getting mad at this? Is it literally just her? I don't think it's just her. I'm sure there are some people. I don't know. I don't really think you go to see X-Men. And if you take, if that hurts you, if a movie title or a comic, this superhero, tagline, if that upsets you, I don't think it's necessarily a problem with it. You know what I mean? I think you have to kind of look inward because that kind of stuff really should not get on your nerves. It's I don't know. There's other things I could say. I'm not going to, just because I fear for my safety. But basically, I guess the overall point is if you go, what I want to say, if you go on the internet basically for validation of you, right? People needing to say the same thing or agreeing, or things. I don't know, things where like their profile or whatever. If you look to that and you need that in your life, I think you need to cut that out. You know what I mean? There's something else missing in your life. Nobody really should have to look to the internet, these people that we have no idea who they are, for validation on you. You need to get to that point where you feel okay, and that's ultimately the point. So again, for X-Men, who when you see X-Men, if you get offended by that, I think and I guess maybe you could say there's a problem if you get offended that they changed it. But also, I would then throw what you just said, right? Well, but the whole idea is if you change it, you can change it again. Anything they're going to change it to, we can always come up with another fake, we could pretend we are these people that get so offended, and we can keep moving the goalposts. So why not just leave it? Because it's really, the general point is, it's not really doing harm. It's doing harm to people that are so, bottled up with themselves, or they look to X-Men for some sort of validation because it says men and that upsets them. They need to figure out their own lives. There's no need to change it, because then if you change it, well, then there should be then a problem with the new name, and then the new name after, and so on and so on. So it's actually even like the same thing for like Slave One, right? If you're upset by that ship's name, go get help. Don't change. I mean, if you change the name, it just looks bad, and you can keep coming up with excuses and examples and stuff to call that stuff out. Just leave it alone. Who is really getting upset from Slave One? Really? I mean, if you are, again, that's something that I don't think you need a fictional ship name in Star Wars to match what you believe in this world. I don't think it needs to do that.
No, and I think that too, I think this does a disservice to the people that X-Men was supposed to help create empathy for. Like I said, this was a very political book, and it would be considered that now, I would say. But at the time that it came out, those concepts were not overtly supposed to be political, right? Things like race relations and all that stuff. The point of X-Men was to say, hey, everybody is special. And this sounds like some Barney level annoying preachy crap, but it really wasn't. The point is, everybody is special, from, James, like Logan, who goes through all of these different traumas throughout his life, and he's basically someone who's ripped apart several times throughout his life, personally, emotionally, and physically, through the things he goes through, and he can still contribute. This veteran of multiple wars with PTSD can contribute to making a better world. These kids who are young that no way take seriously, they all have special talents, and they can contribute to making a better world, and humans and mutants can get along and coexist, just like white people and black people and Asian people and Latino people. There was always underlying meanings to X-Men. And I think that one of those meanings was about humanity. You know, it was the men in X-Men was not it was not like, hey, men who have male reproductive organs. It was like the man in humanity, the thing that ties us all together. There's man and woman, like at the basic term of, you know, born sexes, right? Not getting into everything with gender identity and everything like that, but I'm just saying humanity is sort of the term, not the gendered version of it. I think that you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and selling humanity short on this one. I think that if you do this, instead of talking about those things that unite humanity and the point of the book and the characters originally, you're just going in on what tears humanity further apart. Divisions, ideology of, I can never say what I mean, so I shouldn't try. I better not offend anyone, anything like that. I think that that kind of stuff really flies in the face of what the comic was about. And I do think that while I would not, it would not ruin my day and really scare me if they changed it, I just think it would be disappointing because I think it does a disservice to all the people that the book was supposed to help create empathy for and in, and I think it really misses the point. I think it would kind of be like, if somebody, this is like an insanely like a real world example, but it would be like if we started dissecting Dr. King's speech as racist or something like that, where it's like, this is a thing that somebody made to unite people, to try and make them think like someone that they're not and realize, oh, hey, that human over there, that's my brother, or that human over there, that's my sister. Like we're all part of the same species and we should coexist. I think that once we start tearing into those things and trying to find divisions where there aren't, when there's already so many in the world, I just think it does a disservice to everybody, and it makes me wonder what the point of making more of these movies would be other than just for cash.
Yep. No, I 100%. It's what I was saying earlier too, right? Where it's like it ultimately does more harm than good, but why it does that is exactly what you just said. It's something that creates divide. It's something that creates like this anger, and it again, maybe not necessarily in this case, but it oftentimes goes, they're doing what they're so, violently against. You see on social media and stuff, when you push that hard, eventually you end up just becoming that. You don't even realize it half the time, but that's where you're at. Same thing, again, not necessarily, I guess, the same thing here, but is the same sense, right? Where you're making something out of nothing. You're creating division that was not already there. You know what I mean? It doesn't exist, and you're going to create it by doing this. And so you're not, again, what you're preaching, we want to make it more inclusive, or we want to just make it maybe a safer space. It already is, for those that are in the know, it is a safe space. By you doing this, you're actually hurting that. And they may don't, I think they do realize it. I think some people kind of sell these people short, that they don't know what they're doing. I think that generally, if for things like this, there is a general knowledge that they know exactly what they're doing, because they're just kind of bad people in that sense. I don't know about, this lady, but I, like you said, it's not going to be the end of the world. But I really, really hope it doesn't happen.
I do too. And I think that at the end of the day, like you said, it's not us that they're hurting if they do that. If you look at this from the divisive standpoint, there are plenty of, I don't even care about this, but like, let's say I did, there are plenty of white male characters that identify as men in fiction. I'm not going to cry at the loss of one or something like that, or the term men. What I would find disappointing is just that they missed the point at the end of the day.
Yep.
So anyway, Alex, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I think I will stop rambling now, but this is a very interesting topic. If anyone has not yet subscribed to Alex, you must do so. You must. Currently, there is a team of trained gerbils infiltrating your house that is going to be cutting your power lines if you do not sub to Alex within 10 seconds. I've trained them personally. Alex doesn't know about this. It was a top secret project. But no, Alex is a huge friend of mine. I really appreciate him. He is always on this channel. We do a lot of collaborations together and have a lot of fun, and we probably spend more time messing around talking outside of our collaborations than we do on the videos. So these are not just fake audience swaps for us or anything. We really do enjoy talking to each other. and I will be on his channel again soon as well. So be sure to check him out. He's got 2 channels, Podcast Now and Podcast Now Plus. Those are both down in the description with links, and also I have put in the description things like his social media and everything, so please check him out. And if you have not subscribed yet to this channel or my secondary channel, Degenerate Plays, we have a ton of fun here and there, and we hope to see you in future videos. Have a fantastic day, everyone, and as always, stay shui.